I'm going to talk about Alien Embodiment Laboratory. And this is one output of an ongoing art science research project that is conducted in collaboration with Kirsten McKenzie, who is a cognitive neuroscientist based in the psychology department here at Lincoln. All our research circulates around this notion of body image. So within the psychology literature, body image is, simply put, how we think we look like from the outside and how we feel about that. So it contains, so it includes kind of perception, evaluation, and affect, feels. It's very common to feel badly about how you think you look. So in fact, there is what might be described as a crisis of body image dissatisfaction currently. So being dissatisfied with one's body is so common as to be considered normal within the psychology literature. It's called normative discontent. In the UK, only 1 in 5 people are satisfied with their own bodies, and more than 1 in 10 men and more than 1 in 4 women feel disgusted by their own bodies, which is always a kind of shocking statistic when I read it back. So Kirsten and I wanted to intervene into this crisis situation. And we did so by working together to produce this workshop for young people called Alien Embodiment Laboratory. And the explicit aims of the workshop are to promote body image literacy and appearance well-being. And because it's an art science project, the idea is that the 2 disciplines kind of work together to produce these effects. And every time we deliver the workshop, we track the efficacy and impact, collect data. Right, so there's a long version of the workshop and a shorter version of the workshop. So the key aspects of the workshop are a presentation that Kirsten delivers that goes through the science of body image and concentrates really on the key social drivers of body image dissatisfaction. And that's followed by an art video that I've made that is inspired by the research that we've done, that kind of filters body image science through an imaginative lens. And so in short, the video is a kind of arty sci-fi that involves space travel, alien encounters, bodily transformations. And implicit within the video, yeah, it's good. And implicit within the video is a kind of defense of bodily difference and diversity. And so there's the presentation, and then the artwork is screened, and then there is a discussion that's very interactive and brings the 2 together. All right, so it appears to be having some sort of positive impact, this workshop. So 94% of participants said that they knew more about body image after the workshop than before. 86 had a better understanding of how media, and particular social media, influences the way that they see themselves. And 40% agreed the workshop could make them feel more positive about their bodies in future. And 33% responded, maybe. So for me, this bullet point kind of covers this tentative kind of well-being effect that might be claimed for this workshop. And I'm going to link it to this very concise testimonial that was presented by one young lad upon kind of viewing the video, that it was cool and cryptic. So for me, there is a connection between the well-being impact and that kind of the cryptic nature of the art. So I don't see that as problematic at all. And I'll explain in a bit of theoretical detail why I think that's the case. So the purpose of this talk, that really was the preamble. The purpose of this talk now is to theorize, quite speculatively, about how this art video might be having this well-being effect. This conceptual framework called predictive processing. So it's empirically grounded, used in cognitive neuroscience, philosophy of mind, robotics, all sorts of different disciplines. And it provides an explanation for cognition, or that's its aim. So including perception, thoughts, and feelings. So the banner kind of heading for predictive processing is that perception is an internal simulation. Perception is provided by this internal simulation. It's called the world model, or the generative world model within the literature. And this world model is predictive through and through. It's constructed out of predictions, and it's constantly issuing predictions. So these predictions carry and update the simulation. Beliefs and thoughts are included in this mechanism as well. There's no hard line between kind of raw perception and more conscious inferential processes. They're both part of an inferential predictive system. Yeah, so just to kind of render this as clear as possible, it seems that perceiving the world has more in common with states such as dreaming and hallucinating than you might think. So body image can be understood as a kind of part of this world model, the part that is addressed to one's own body. So how you think you look is a prediction. And it's a prediction built from past experience. And past experience within the predictive model is previous episodes of predictive success. And those are around self-observations of various sorts. In photographs, very commonly now, it's probably how we kind of observe ourselves most often these days. In mirrors, looking at our bodies, but also kind of intersubjective stuff. Other people's opinions on how you look, social norms about the body beautiful. Okay, so I've just said that perception does have more in common with hallucination than might have previously been thought, but it's not a hallucination. It's very different. It's kept honest. This is Andy Clark's phrase, and it's kept honest by this prediction error minimization, PEM. And what PEM does is maintain traction between the simulation and the real world. And it does this so the prediction is generated and then it's compared to incoming sensory information that's pre-conscious and received by the sensory perimeter of our bodies. And where there is a mismatch, an error signal propagates through the system, and this recruits better predictions that are more tractable upon the world as experienced. Right, so now we've got the toolkit, I think, to understand what body image dissatisfaction is using this kind of terminology, these conceptual tools. So body image emerges when appearance expectations become narrow and fixed. So the narrow bit first. So repeated exposure to body ideals within culture, especially on social media, like spending between 5 and 8 hours a day looking at Instagram or TikTok, which is kind of the average for young people 16 to 24. In one workshop, a girl said, "That's nothing, I'm on it 16 hours a day." More hours than are in the day. But spending that amount of time consuming idealized, highly curated, often invisible bodies, lots of bodies generated by AI these days, trains your predictive mechanism to expect a very narrow body, have a very narrow understanding of what a body should look like. So when this narrow prediction is applied to the observation of your own body, it generates errors. There's a mismatch between the actual body and the ideal body. And in the normal state of affairs, these errors recruit better predictions. So the prediction tracks the body and how the body changes. But in body image dissatisfaction, the ideal body expectation is fixed. And therefore chronic errors ensue. And these chronic errors are felt, and they have a kind of an experiential negativity. It's like a baseline negativity. And it is believed that this kind of underpins the more complex phenomena of body image dissatisfaction. All right, these predictive processing theorists have something to say about aesthetics as well. So they're particularly interested in ambiguity as a key feature of aesthetic experience. So think about difficult art, and we've sort of been discussing this already. Much, indeed most, modern and contemporary art is either and/or perceptually complex or conceptually complex. It's hard to resolve perceptually. Think of a cubist painting, right? It poses a problem to an immediate perceptual resolution of the gestalt which is in that image. Think of a seemingly random selection of found objects that are organized into an installation. That is a conceptual conundrum. What am I supposed to take from this? What is the meaning of this? So according to predictive processing, this encounter with ambiguity unleashes a kind of iterative cycle of predictions, with an attempt to grapple with this ambiguity to find a resolution. But this resolution is ultimately frustrated, ambiguity persists, errors remain in the system. From what I've just said, one would expect this to be felt negatively, for it to be unpleasant to look at modern and contemporary art. And maybe some people do feel that. But anyway, the predictive error mechanism, the reduction of predictive error is more subtle than that. And it seems that organisms such as us, and perhaps all living things, are actually attracted to complex situations which have a promise of reward. And the idea within predictive processing aesthetics is that art kind of sits in this Goldilocks zone of ambiguity, which taps into this notion of a promise of reward. It is not too complicated as to be off-putting and to be frustrating, disappointing. It is not so easy that it's like completely easily consumed, poses no problem for perception. It sits in this kind of Goldilocks zone, just the right ambiguity, in that it's promising to offer the perceiver conceptual or perceptual progress You know, you might not fully resolve the cubist painting when you look at it, but it offers you different profiles. You gain some perceptual understanding from it. Same with a conceptually complicated piece of art. And this process, this promise of reward within a complex situation, provides a positive emotional feeling, a kind of positive level of affect. And this positive feeling has long been theorized within aesthetics discourse. It's called aesthetic pleasure. So one can look at this predictive processing account of aesthetic pleasure from a bit of a kind of utilitarian perspective and see it maybe as a form of cognitive training, a pleasurable form of cognitive training, one that promotes perceptual and cognitive flexibility. I think this notion, this training, can be harnessed to body image dissatisfaction. And I think maybe the video is already doing this in a kind of intuitive way, but the aim is to kind of build upon this more consciously. Right, so back to the video then. There are lots of figures within the video, human actors, or at least they're 3D models, and they undergo these kind of wave-like distortions. They become fluid. There are creatures, kind of hybrid alien-like creatures within the video, also undergoing distortions. The human figures and the aliens kind of morph into each other at points as well. I'm going to say that all these figures are alien bodies. So I'm using this in a slightly technical way for bodies that are unfamiliar and perceptually ambiguous. They pose problems for immediate categorization. Basically, they're ambiguous. Alien bodies equals ambiguity. I also employ this technique of direct address on the audio. So the audio has quite a lot of content like this. Can you imagine an exoplanet that has conditions close to Earth, but not quite? Imagine a being capable of living here. Imagine yourself as that being. Does it seem as if the other body belonged to you? It's quite this kind of repeat, iterative, direct address. What this is doing, I think, is encouraging a form of embodiment identification. So encouraging that you identify with the alien bodies in the video, do so bodily. This is my claim. All right, so bringing it all together then. So I think the video occupies this kind of this Goldilocks zone of ambiguity, and I'm talking specifically about the alien bodies within it. They are unfamiliar and perceptually ambiguous. They resist immediate classification. And in resisting, they're prompting this pleasurable round, iterative cycling through predictions. And that kind of trains flexibility into the system. I think the identification cues within the video mean that you're not only puzzling over these alien bodies at a distance, you're employing your own bodily predictive mechanism in grappling with their ambiguity. That's the claim anyway. So exploring them through predictions ordinarily used for self-appearance perception. And I think this is where the remediation effect happens. So the narrow fixity associated with body image dissatisfaction is, I wouldn't say trained away, but the training enables a flexibility within the system so that predictions are able to track the lived body without producing the chronic errors. So in sum, training flexibility to reduce chronic errors, which are the underlying kind of affective component of body image dissatisfaction. So maybe this accounts in some small way for participants' more positive feelings about their appearance after having viewed the video. Highly speculative. How long it lasts, I don't know. But I really like this account because it links social forces, individual psychology, art, in a way that we can understand how they're all interrelated. Lots of cognitive neuroscientists think this is the most promising model of brain and mind that there is. So it's got a lot of empirical evidence kind of behind it. There's lots of people who think it's not so promising, but helpful for pinpointing the well-being problem and trying to be as precise as possible in terms of how the aesthetic of the artwork might remediate that problem. Okay, that's it. Thank you.